Chapter 10. "Here I am!" he called out. A noise came back, the sound of air being forced through vocal cords, a mouth trying to shape that air into words, and failing, something trying to talk. He was beyond wondering what that something was. Oki, Ellie Kedward, John Lee Fellows. Beyond trying to think about the last few hours in any sort of way that related to what he'd always thought of as the real world. The point was, something was out there. It wanted to kill him, so he would have to kill it first. He filled both hands with berries and squeezed. The juice pressed out between his knuckles, down the back of his hands and his arms. It felt like power. Now all he had to do was... Something struck him on the head, and he dropped like a stone. He rolled quickly to his right, his head ringing, and started to stand. A hand grabbed him by the throat and lifted him the rest of the way off the ground. He gasped and reached out to loosen its grip. One of his hands touched skin. The other touched wood. He pressed down hard, feeling the juice of the berries still sticky against his skin. He smelled something burning. The thing roared with pain and dropped him. He heard it move away and got back on his feet. He wobbled a moment, his head woozy. Damn, that thing was strong. The skin on his throat was raw where it had grabbed him. A few more seconds and he would have been out cold. He squinted into the mist but saw nothing. A few more berries were in his pocket. Crawford pulled them out and waited. A minute passed. He wondered how badly he had hurt it. Maybe the thing wasn't going to come after him anymore. The thing. He would keep calling it that, even in his mind. But he knew now what he was fighting. Sweat dripped from his brow. He reached up and brushed it away. Something grabbed him from behind, pinning his arms. His feet came off the ground. He grunted and lunged forward with all his might, trying to get his feet back down, get some leverage. He couldn't do it. Crawford twisted back and forth, from side to side in its grasp, kicking his legs trying to get loose before the thing... The two of them fell to the rock. He rolled onto his back. The thing loomed over him. He smelled its breath, the scent of the grave, the fetid, moist stench of decay. He shoved the last of the berries forward and into its mouth. The thing screamed and shook and fell off him. It made a gurgling noise in its throat, and then it was silent. Crawford got to his feet, wobbled a moment. His head was woozy and throbbing where the thing had hit him. A cold wind blew, and the mist cleared. He was on the rock. Bits and pieces of the abomination Fellows had built lay in a pile next to him. Fellows himself stood outside the circle he had drawn with his old blood, knife in hand. "Oki tells me I am to build a new body." He advanced on Crawford, holding the knife in front of him. "You will help." The berries in his hand weren't going to do him any good now. He dropped the sticky remnants on the ground and began circling. The rock was wet beneath his feet and slippery. Fellows moved forward. He lunged with the knife. Crawford moved back. Fellows lunged again. Crawford took one step back, then another. The first foot found rock. The other found only air. He teetered on the edge for a split second, then fell backward into the stream. The water was cold, the creek bed shallow and soft. He landed flat on his back in the mud and lay there for a second, stunned. Fellows jumped down after him. Crawford scrambled backward, slipped, scrambled again. He got to his feet just as Fellows reached him. He dodged one knife thrust, pinned the man's arm against the side of his body. They grappled. They both fell into the stream. First Fellows was on top. Then it was Crawford, holding Fellows' knife hand his right, at bay with both of his own. Fellows dug his other hand into Crawford's face and pushed. Crawford twisted away, but Fellows was tall, with a long reach. His finger found Crawford's eye socket. Crawford grunted in pain and pushed himself up and off Fellows. He felt a sharp pain in his leg. Just under the knee, felt something warm and wet against his skin. Shit, he realized. Fellows had stabbed him. "A good start," the man said, climbing to his feet. Crawford began backing up again. The back of his leg throbbed. He was limping as he went. He bumped against something hard, the rock. He scrambled onto it again. Fellows followed. Crawford took a deep breath. He realized that sometime over the last few minutes, the game had changed. Now they weren't playing Blair Witch or Oki the Demon or anything like that. Now they were playing cops and robbers. This was a game Crawford always won. Fellows began circling him again, knife in hand. Fellows lunged. Crawford dodged. He let Fellows get a little closer. Lunge, dodge, and closer. Lunge. Crawford chopped down. The knife fell to the rock. "I will eat your heart myself," Fellows said. Crawford shook his head. Don't think so. He rushed Fellows and tackled him. They rolled over and over and over. Crawford ended up on top, Fellows underneath, facing the rock, gasping for breath. Eat my heart, huh? Crawford reached down, pulled off his belt, and tied Fellows' hands with it. All you're going to be eating is prison food. Now it was Fellows' turn to howl in frustration. He writhed underneath Crawford, trying to throw him off. His body was one long, corded muscle. Crawford leaned into him, pressing his weight down. It occurred to him that quite probably he was going to have to knock the man out to get him safely back to town. Wouldn't that be a damn shame? Get off of me! Fellows yelled. Crawford grinned, and the wind, which had died out almost completely, began to blow again. Fellows stopped struggling. No, no, Oki, I do not. I can beat this man. Fog rose on the rock. The wind howled. No, Oki, don't! Fellows started to struggle again, if anything more frantically than before. The fog swirled around the two men like a thing alive, darting this way and that. It seemed to settle for a moment around Crawford's leg, where Fellows had cut him, and it squeezed. Crawford gasped. Then the fog was off him and on Fellows. No! The man's scream turned into something wordless. His body tensed, and then he stopped struggling and went suddenly limp. The fog lifted. The wind died. Crawford rolled Fellows over. Blood dripped from scars freshly carved on his forehead.